Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday at 5:30. College football. College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter. SEC is all that matters.
Nick Saban
is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
All right, faithful listeners, welcome in once again to another week of Outputting Our Coverage. You know we always start the show with good calls and bad calls. Before we get into the actual good and bad football-related calls, one terrible call by Outputting Our Coverage staff last week to try out new microphones. We apologize for that one. Although the new microphones only cost us $6, including shipping and handling from Amazon, so not such a big loss financially.
Good call, trying new microphones. Bad call with the product selection.
Yes.
We should be fixing that this week, hopefully.
Yes, we've learned the old adage, you get what you pay for. So if any of you listeners would like to donate us a very large sum of money, we can set ourselves up with a very nice studio recording equipment, and then it really pays off in the end for you.
And depending on what kind of chunk of money you want, we could actually have our own little studio.
Yeah, and you can come. We'll build you a special seat to sit in so you can listen to the show live every week. David's wife might even make you food. I can't say these things for sure.
Crochet you a hat.
Yes, so
you can heckle.
So that is our shameless plug for monetary donations. Good calls and bad calls don't need a shameless plug because we are just supplying so many bad calls into the mix that they are basically self-sustaining at this point.
They are. I had a pretty good week, but the ones that I missed on, it was just awful.
Let's start with good calls first.
All right.
Let's just get the good out of the way early so that we can just mire ourselves in misery later.
My good call, I'm going to say, is Ohio State. A lot of people jumping on the Penn State bandwagon thinking that they had gotten it back together. Neither one of those programs looked great, but Ohio State's offense won the day with a pretty comfortable victory.
So do you still think Ohio State is the best team in the Big Ten, if there even is such a thing?
Well, I think it's without a doubt they're the best team in the Big Ten. It's not even close, but it doesn't matter because they don't count.
Yeah, it's Big Ten. What to borrow a phrase from another podcast, a dumpster fire.
Yes.
It's really disturbing. My good call, I had very few to choose from once again this week. I will go with Ole Miss, though, over Arkansas. We were tempted to think that maybe Arkansas was getting things back on track with their game against Auburn and then against Kentucky. Ole Miss definitely did not blow this Arkansas team out of the water, had to win on a last-second field goal, but still, Arkansas, a team that has a lot more talent than Ole Miss. They should, I think you could say if Petrino was still there, they definitely would have won this game.
Ole Miss's offense looked good. They are just so consistent with that running game. It's kind of mind-boggling.
I'm interested to see where Ole Miss is going here in the coming years. I think, obviously, I think it's going to be tough for them to contend for the SEC West, but I think they can maybe at least be close. I don't know.
Maybe in third or fourth, somewhere around there.
It's a shame there's not like a second and third place SEC West team should get a BCS bowl at this point. It seems like
it should be written in.
Yeah, we'll have to get that into the new playoff contract once they ask us for our opinion on that one, which we're still waiting for.
So, we'll get a call.
Yes, we will. All right, bad calls. Let's go ahead and do those now.
Oklahoma was pretty bad.
Yeah. I don't think we saw that one coming.
I didn't. I thought Oklahoma was going to win, and they were going to win big. And they had chances. The offense seemed to move the ball early, and then they just turned the ball over way too many times and got stagnant with their play calling. And then Oklahoma's defense got shredded up the middle. And you just can't let a Notre Dame team run the ball right up the guard and then break it for 80 yards for the first score of the game. Ended up being 30-13. Wasn't really close, so Oklahoma's definitely my bad call.
So let's break down this game a little bit further. Notre Dame really inserting itself into the national championship discussion for real at this point. I mean, it's hard to ignore that. But was this game more a function of how good Notre Dame is, or is it a function of Oklahoma shooting themselves in the foot? I mean, we saw this Oklahoma team a few weeks ago just destroy a Texas team that admittedly is not very good this year, but they looked like a pretty good team at that point.
But you've got to remember, within the first 3 weeks of the year, we still didn't think Oklahoma was going to win maybe 7 or 8 games this year. They looked awful.
That's true.
They have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing. you never know what you're going to get with them. I mean, they only won by, 1 or 2 against UTEP?
Yeah.
So we're not really sure who Oklahoma is. And then some of these big games Notre Dame has coming down the pipe, USC. We're not really sure who they are after their losses this week. So
yeah, what a great segue right into my bad call there. USC. You and I both thought that USC would have no trouble with Arizona.
Right.
Rich Rod maybe a little bit ahead of schedule at Arizona there, or maybe USC's just kind of fallen off. It's tough to tell which, but things don't get a whole lot easier for USC. Like you mentioned, they still have to play. Notre Dame, and they still have to play at UCLA, which is looking like a little bit tougher game now.
And Oregon this week.
Yeah, well, we're not even talking about Oregon. That's a guaranteed loss for them in my book.
Well, Oregon is just a faster, bigger version of Arizona who plays better defense.
Yes, so that's a no-brainer. But USC, a far cry. I believe you and I both handily predicted earlier this season that USC would not be able to live up to this hype.
We had good calls on that one.
Yes.
I believe we predicted at least 2 losses,
Yes.
and they're already there.
They're already there. Probably looking at more Matt Barkley's Heisman candidacy down the drain. I think that is something that all SEC fans can agree on, that it makes them happy. So, see, there are silver linings to
There
this.
are, and USC's offense really has not been the problem. It's been their defense, and we talked about this at the beginning of the year. USC was so highly touted because of the positional players that they had, but nobody looked at the lines, and the offensive and defensive lines lost so much you just couldn't expect them to put a good team back on the field.
Even in the Pac-12, you have to have line play. What a strange concept.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We're going to take just a little break here. We'll be back on the other side. Got a lot of stuff to talk about, Alabama and LSU. We know we haven't really talked about Alabama a whole lot so far this season, but got a great matchup to preview this week. We'll let you know our thoughts on that one here on the other side of outputting our coverage.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count. SEC, college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong.
And Missouri and Texas A&M as well.
Yeah, SEC preview.
Here we go.
All right, we are back here on outputting our coverage. I said before the break we were going to talk about Alabama. We got to talk about Auburn real quick. There's not much to say these days.
It was bad.
Another epic loss. Maybe the only silver lining for Auburn at this point, Jonathan Wallace got into the game after the offensive coordinating staff were handily booed when they tried to put Kyle Frazier back into the game.
Right.
And one of the uglier things I think I've been a part of. Jonathan Wallace looked good against some scrubs. He's been named the starter for this week. Auburn has New Mexico State at home, another 1-17 for what has been dubbed the pillow fight on the plains.
Right.
I think Auburn could probably win this game. They're a 23-point favorite, which to me seems a little high, but
I think this is all you have to look at, and it's the teams that New Mexico State has lost to. Ohio, which is a good team. UTEP 2-7. New Mexico 4-5. University of Texas San Antonio, which I don't even think is a Division I team. They lost to them by 21. Idaho, Utah State. I don't think Auburn's going to have a problem there.
So basically what we're saying is Auburn fans, live it up this weekend, because after this, things get rough again.
Treat this like the Super Bowl.
Yes, so that's about all we're going to say on that. Let's talk about Alabama and Mississippi State. We had Garrett Burke on the show last week that nobody could hear. He offered some really good insight. We promised we're going to get him back on again. He even admitted, though, that Mississippi State was probably overmatched in this game, and I think that's pretty much what we saw.
I don't think anybody was expecting the 34-0, though. Alabama came out and they dominated early. A couple things, though, you see with Alabama. Injuries again. It looks like McCarron's going to be fine after he bruised his back. You see kickoff coverage, not very good. Could come into play, but outside of that, solid as usual.
Yeah, we've talked about it week after week. Alabama has great offensive balance. They continued that once again in this game. They have basically established a type of rushing oppression against other teams that you really just don't see that much anymore. That's what SEC defense used to be built on, but there are very few teams that can stop another team's rushing attack like Alabama can.
And you expected it last year, but this year they were supposed to have lost all their talent. They had everybody go to the NFL in high-round draft picks. They've got a lot of young people starting, and they just keep doing it.
Yeah, and another thing with a great defense is they're opportunistic. You know, even when they don't go well, I mean, things can't be perfect on defense all the time. Mississippi State had some chances to score early in that game, but The Alabama defense steps up, causes turnovers.
A blocked field goal, an interception on the one. On a great kickoff, they force a fumble.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that great teams do. When the chips are down, they're able to get plays out of their playmakers.
That's it.
And that's what Alabama was able to do in this game, and that's what Alabama is hoping to do in this big matchup against LSU. Not quite as big as either of the games last year, I don't think you can say.
No.
But still, definitely the toughest test Alabama's faced this year.
Definitely, and probably the toughest test they'll face the rest of the year. They got a tough A&M team after this, and then Auburn and some other weak school. But LSU is going to be the toughest one they've got all year. They're playing there at night. They've got all this history from a year ago. LSU hasn't looked great all year, but you can throw all that out the window when you bring this much passion and hate into a game. Throw statistics out.
Yeah, LSU had the week off to prepare. It's tough to say whether that gives them much of an advantage. They had, one thing I want to look at with this game is they had all that time to prepare for the national championship last year, and they looked like they came in with absolutely no plan at all. So I'm not necessarily sure that having a bye week beforehand is a huge advantage. And one of the central points to me in this game is LSU's not really doing anything drastically different from what they did last year. So why should we expect that there are going to be different results in this game?
I personally don't think that we should. The only thing you can think is if LSU comes out and has played vanilla all year long and then just throws out their playbook and brings in a new one, and maybe even a new quarterback. The only way LSU is going to win is if Mettenberger has the same type of game that Garcia had when South Carolina knocked off Alabama a couple years ago. Garcia, we all know, is turnover prone, not a good quarterback, but he played lights out for one game, and that's what LSU is going to need out of their quarterback.
Yeah, LSU has a stable of running backs. They have about 4 very good guys that they use, but as I mentioned earlier, Alabama is going to shut that down for the most part. They're going to make Zach Mettenberger be the guy to beat him, and we have not seen anything out of it. I mean, I just think back to that Auburn game with LSU, and if Mettenberger can't do much against the Auburn defense this year, I mean, gee, seriously?
Yeah, Mettenberger is only averaging about 45% completion rating this year, so not very accurate.
LSU, defensively, they're going to have a performance like what they got against South Carolina, where they held Marcus Lattimore to 35 yards. If they can do that kind of thing again, stop Alabama's rushing attack, they're going to keep themselves in the game. And honestly, I think that's the path for them to victory here. The defense has to be opportunistic. They got to be like that Alabama defense we were just talking about. Create turnovers, do enough to keep them in this game, and then Mettenberger is going to have to make some plays he hasn't been making.
Do you think they can shut down the running back combo with Yeldon in the backfield? I mean, he really does throw that wrench into the system.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if any team has a chance to do it, it may be LSU. I'm not sure. It's tough to say. They haven't really faced anything like that this year, and on the other side, Alabama hasn't really faced a defense like LSU's yet either.
They haven't, and McCarron is playing this year like he was in the national championship game. I mean, we really haven't seen that McCarron since, the first time we ever saw him was in the national championship game against LSU, and even with a better defense, they couldn't stop it.
Yeah, so I think that makes it a lot tougher for LSU to stop the rushing attack is the elevated play of A.J. McCarron. Obviously, with that balance, it makes it hard to scheme against much of anything.
Well, I'm not going to ask you what you think about the game yet, but let me ask you, do you think A.J. McCarron throws his first interception in this game?
Oh, that's tough. He almost had one last week. I mean, it basically should have been one.
It should have been an interception.
I mean, just from the law of averages, I'm going to say probably yes. LSU has some pretty good secondary play, but I don't think that's going to be a difference in this game.
No. I think Alabama's got more of an advantage than that.
But, I mean, at some point, it's probably going to happen.
He'll throw one this year.
And it more than likely be against one of the best defenses they face.
Right.
So that would be my guess. You mentioned the special teams for Alabama. That is something that, in a close game, could make a difference. I mean, we saw that last year. The first matchup of these teams, the inability to make field goals cost them the game. So,
if you're Alabama, you have to be preaching finish every single drive.
Yeah.
You cannot line up and take long field goals. You've got to punch it into the end zone because you can't trust your own field goal kickers. And LSU can have really good field position because the kickoff coverage for Alabama has been poor all year long. It's been their one weak link.
Yeah, so In my opinion, we always like to give one key here.